a mega project in which more than 150 countries worldwide participated, where the promise of building new airports, motorways, and seaports was made, where dreams of creating future Dubais and Singapores were shown. But today, in these very countries, these mega projects appear incomplete and dreams shattered. Some are burdened by debt, while others present a scene of ruins. This was China's largest global mega project, named the Belt and Road Initiative. There was a time when everyone called it the project of the century, but today it is called a geopolitical disaster, and its greatest harm has been inflicted upon those poor nations that were shown its alluring dreams. And what exactly happened that people are now pointing fingers at a superpower like China? Welcome once again to Fact Central's videos. Viewers, in 2013, when China's President Xi Jinping announced the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI for short, it was hailed as the biggest plan of the century. Its objective was to create a Silk Road that would connect Asia, Africa, and Europe through railway lines, highways, and ports. China's mission was to bring those poor nations onto the path of development and to present China as a global leader. China's vision stunned the world. More than 140 countries expressed interest in this plan, and many poor nations immediately began taking loans from China. Before long, China had invested $1.2 trillion in this project. But China gave this money in the form of loans to countries that Western banks or the IMF had deemed risky and refused to lend to. However, soon the true nature of the BRI began to emerge. It was not just an infrastructure project, but a geopolitical and economic agenda of China. In reality, China's industrial capacity had grown so much, meaning millions of engineers were graduating annually, but it was becoming difficult to adjust them to jobs within China. That's when China devised a plan to export them and increase its geopolitical power. The plan was to provide loans to poor countries for VI projects and utilize China's industrial capacity on those projects, benefiting its own people. The biggest problem with BRI is debt-trap diplomacy. That is, China gave so many loans to poor countries that they could never pay them back, and in return, they would be forced to hand over their land or crucial infrastructure to China. The biggest example of this is Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan leaders were shown dreams that if they built a new port on the Indian Ocean, they could become a regional trade hub like Dubai. Sri Lanka's problem was that they already had the Colombo port, but that was a transshipment hub where containers from large vessels were transferred to smaller ships. China tempted Sri Lanka to build a new deep water port named Hambantota Port on the busy shipping route from the Strait of Malacca to the Suez Canal. When Sri Lanka decided to take a $1.3 billion loan from China, China gradually laid out its conditions. The condition was that only Chinese firms would construct this port. The interest on the loans was low, but if the loan was not repaid, China had the power to seize control of that project. Well, construction happened, but Hambantota Port never became operational. Feasibility studies showed that there was no real need for a port there, and the situation was such that only 30 to 40 ships docked over there throughout the year. Now, with the port not operating, loan repayment also became an issue. It reached a point where, under an agreement in 2017, Sri Lanka had to lease the port to a Chinese company for 99 years. Now, all the revenue from that port goes only to China, and Sri Lanka has, in a way, lost a part of its sovereignty. But Sri Lanka was not alone in falling into this trap. Zambia, a small African nation that relies solely on copper exports, has also fallen into this trap. Their leaders dreamed of modernizing the economy and started several projects with the help of Chinese loans. They were given the narrative that the terms of loans from the IMF and Western countries are very tough, but they never considered the downside of Chinese loan conditions. Those conditions stated that if the loan was not repaid, China would seize their assets. But the price of these dreams was very high. By 2020, 43% of Zambia's total debt was owed solely to China. And in November 2020, when trade and tourism collapsed due to the COVID-19 pandemic and demand for copper fell, Zambia defaulted. BRI also initiated many projects that were useless. These are called white elephant projects, meaning projects that look grand and magnificent but have no practical benefit. Montenegro, a small European country, took a $1 billion loan from China in 2014. The purpose of this loan was to build the Bar-Muljer highway. However, the planning for this project was so poor that although highway construction began by cutting through mountains, all the money ran out on just this small section. Now, there is only a 41-kilometer road that leads nowhere. So much money was spent on this small section that the entire economy of the country was shaken. Now, Montenegro's debt has exceeded 80% of its GDP, and they are seeking help from the IMF and the European Union. Sri Lanka also built an airport near Hambantota Port to facilitate development in the surrounding area. Malala Rajapaksa International Airport was built at a cost of $200 million, and this money was also taken as a loan from China. However, neither airlines showed interest nor did passengers arrive. Today, this airport is called the world's emptiest airport because flights are very infrequent. Sometimes elephants and other animals are seen roaming on its runway. On the west coast of South America, there is a small country named Ecuador, and it too has fallen into the clutches of the Brit. To solve their energy crisis, they collaborated with China to build a $2.6 billion dam named Coca-Cola Sinclair. However, during construction, Chinese contractors ignored quality standards, and it later emerged that work was carried out by bribing officials. As a result, today there are more than 17,000 cracks in the dam's walls. This project is at risk of collapsing at any moment, which could become not just an economic disaster, but also a major human and environmental crisis. Then came Pakistan's turn. CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, was a $60 billion project for Pakistan. Pakistan hoped CPEC would bring electricity, jobs, and development, but most projects were delayed or failed. The people of Gwadar protested extensively against water and electricity shortages and the Chinese government. Promises of jobs were not fulfilled, and Pakistan's debt burden continued to grow. The situation now is that Gwadar port, which was previously under Pakistani authority, is now with China. 91% of its revenue goes to the Chinese, while only the remaining 9% comes to Pakistan. The biggest setback for BRI came when Italy, the only G7 country to join it, announced its withdrawal. China had not given direct cash loans to Italy, but had signed most memoranda of understanding promising Chinese investment and trade deals. However, most projects did not materialize, and Italy received very little economic benefit. This is why Italy later called it a big mistake and exited the PRIS. Besides Italy, countries like Malaysia, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and Nepal have also either cancelled some Belt and Road Initiative projects or renegotiated their terms. Given this failure, the United States and Europe have also launched their alternative initiatives, such as PGI Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment and Europe's Global Gateway Program. These initiatives promise transparent and low-interest loans to avoid China's debt trap. However, this has strengthened relations between China and Russia. After the war against Ukraine, Russia felt isolated and tried to get closer to China through the BRICS. This is creating a new geopolitical axis that could become a new challenge to American dominance. After 10 years and trillions of dollars spent, the Belt and Road Initiative is now considered the biggest foreign policy failure in modern history. The biggest reason for this failure was that BRI was never truly for development, but for China's own interests. China wanted to export its excess industrial capacity, gain access to raw materials, and increase its geopolitical power. Additionally, most of the loans China provided were in Chinese yuan, because China also wanted to promote its currency. Today, the Belt and Road Initiative stands at a new crossroads. China is rebranding it as BRI 2.0, with greater emphasis on digital infrastructure, green energy, and sustainable projects. However, the world is no longer willing to believe in promises as before. Countries will now accept only those projects that can provide real economic benefits, not just increased debt burdens. The question is, while other countries suffered so much from BRI, did China gain any benefit from it? In reality, what China wanted didn't quite happen. China wanted to increase its control globally, but instead, due to BRI, it got branded with debt trap diplomacy. Due to BRI, China's own economy slowed down. The liability of recovering billions of dollars in loans and running the projects it seized has also fallen on China. On the other hand, through BRI, China has acquired direct or indirect stakes in over 100 ports worldwide, which is quite beneficial for China's export economy. If the entire BRI network is completed, it would be the longest road freight sea connection from Asia to Europe, covering 65% of the world's population. We hope you will like and share this back central video extensively. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next amazing video.